Yo, partnership alert, partnership alert, partnership alert. Living Corporate has a partnership with LinkedIn Learning, an American massive open online course provider that provides video courses taught by industry experts across a wide array of subjects. Now, the partnership is because Living Corporate has courses on LinkedIn Learning focused on diversity, equity, and inclusion for leaders, career professionals, and anyone really looking to upskill themselves and be better allies. So make sure you check out our courses on LinkedIn Learning by clicking the link in the show notes. And let's just say you don't want to do that. When you go to LinkedIn Learning on LinkedIn, search Living Corporate. We'll be right there. All right. Peace.
Hey guys, welcome back to the break room. We are super glad to have you. This is the season 2 end of the season get together soiree. So we are super happy to have all of our co-hosts, which we will introduce them in just a second. My name is Dr. Brian Dixon. I am a child and adolescent and adult psychiatrist in the great state or semi-great state or failing state of Texas, where I get to work with awesome families on their mental health to inspire them to reintegrate mental health into their modern lifestyle. And we are joined today. I know it's really catchy. Y'all should be proud of
that's
me.
very fancy. Modern.
Yeah. And so we are joined today by Dr. Nikki.
Hello. I'm so excited to be here. I'm going to call this our mid-season finale, right? Like, when you have the long form 26 episode, they do like a break and then they bring you back that new fresh stuff in the spring. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to call this our mid-season finale. I am Dr. Nikki. I am a licensed psychologist. I am PsyPAC licensed, which means I live in the state of Texas where my license is certified, but I'm able to see clients through telehealth across 25 different states in the grand old US of A. And my practice focuses on Black women's relational and sexual wellness and racial equity and healing work.
And Dr. Jide? Yes? Wait, are you done, Dr. Nikki?
Yes, I didn't know if I was going to say, unless we have, I thought we were going to do popcorn it, and I was going to do.
I say popcorn at Sister Girl, popcorn at.
And our last host has popped himself already into the mix. Dr. Jide.
Yeah, I'm here. I'm Dr. Jide Bamishigbin. I am not a professor anymore. So that's different than the last time, we saw each other or listened to each other. I now do health equity work. So I'm excited to be doing that in a much better, less toxic space.
Preach.
So that's what I do. And I'm a father to 2 beautiful young boys and my wonderful wife. And I'm going to kick it back to Brian to kick it back to the next person.
Yeah, so we have a very special guest tonight, y'all. So a long time ago, there were these Black professionals and they got all these PhDs and these MDs and all this stuff. And we know each other. And there was this amazing content creator and organizer who reached out to us and brought us together. And that
I prefer the term visionary.
Visionary. Like. Okay. Visionary. Yes, the visionator, Mr. Zach Nunn. So we want to give the floor to you, sir, to introduce yourself, and then we'll pop off for the rest of the show.
Yeah. So my name is Zach Nunn. I'm the founder and CEO of Living Corporate LLC. Living Corporate is the umbrella company that houses The Break Room and several other shows. Really honored and excited to be here. I, too, am a husband. I, too, am a father to a single child, Emery. And my wife is named Candace. We've been married for 8 years. I'm based out of Houston, Texas. And I also am a diversity, equity, inclusion tech executive. So excited to be here, excited to be part of the show. Really thankful, blah, 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 blah. I'll save some of my remarks at the end.
Awesome. So, Zach, we are super glad you're here with the host of The Break Room. So, as always, we start our show off with the tea, where we talk about some of the current things that are going on. And then we transition over into a learning point of some sort. And we think we have a good one for y'all. for this podcast, and then we'll normally we close it up with the last nerve, which is where we talk about the shit that's getting on our nerves. But this time we're gonna keep it high. When they go low, we go high, right? Or we get high, or whatever. And so one of our goals this time is to leave y'all with some inspirational stuff. So
I just want the record to be clear. I never said I go high when they go low. I'm not putting that burden on me.
Me either.
You get what I got to give.
You go low, I get a shovel. I get an excavation crew.
I love it. And yeah, that's one of the reasons why we work so well together, because we complement each other's areas of strengths and I wouldn't say weaknesses, because I don't think any of us have any weaknesses. But let's jump back to the tea, y'all. So the tea today, and I cannot wait to hear what y'all have to say about this. So we had two major court cases come down, and you would think that we're going to talk about the Supreme Court and all that. That'll be for next season, so we'll deal with that then. This is actually about the dude, the white guy who crossed 2 states and took a gun and shot a whole bunch of people and did not get, even though he was convicted. He was not, as I understand it, he was not convicted of manslaughter or murder, right? So essentially, he got off on those charges. And
he was charged. He was charged but not convicted.
There you go, charged but not convicted. And I don't even want to say his name because the whole damn thing just makes me mad. But he's a white dude. Versus the guy who was a rising Black actor who, for whatever reason, made a really, really bad choice of trying to drum up some marketing drama and bless his heart. And as a result, he paid some dudes to basically try to hate crime him or create a hate crime. That was the ruse, the ruse. And the poor guy, I think he was convicted on. It was like,
it wasn't even a rude. I feel like my 10-year-old could have.
The way you describe it is
crime
so,
him?
it makes it
to hate crime.
The way you describe it makes it so much funnier. Because I had jokes ready, but I'm about to be thrown off because the way you frame it is the poor guy is also funny. Everything you're saying is funny. Keep going.
Well, so and his name is Jussie Smollett, right? And so and I think he was convicted on 5 or 6 or 4 or 5. I can't remember. But yeah, so I want to hear y'all's take on that. I feel bad for the dude because I'm like, damn, why don't you just pay a really good PR person to get your shit done? Like, why are you?
Here's my thing about Jussie. There are mental health professionals that can help you with that. Like, it's so. Here's my thing. If you're gonna try to do something, do it right, whatever it is. Like if you're going to try to run a con, run a clean con. Like if you're going to try to rob somebody, do it. Like it was so janky from the gate that when people were like, poor Jussie, didn't he have a hashtag like free Jussie? Wasn't that like and I was like, free him from what? His own stupidity? Like it was so whack from the beginning. I actually am not that bothered. So let me say it this way, decontextualized. I'm not bothered that he was charged because you should have some consequences for that. In particular, because he took advantage of the social political landscape at the time in which there was a heightened conversation around the threat to Black lives in the context of MAGA and all of that other bullshit. So he really derailed that conversation and you should have some consequences. Now, you actually add the Kyle Rittenhouse situation, and now we can have a real story about America and what America is, the fuck shit that America stays on, right? So in that context, I can say poor Jussie. But for real, no, Negro, like you created a full farce all on your own, and it wasn't even good. That's what bothered me. It wasn't even good.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, I don't feel bad for you. So it's hard. I'm gonna say this because this is a safe space. I mean, I don't know if it is or not. I feel like if you go to Subway at like 2:00 in the morning, you deserve what happened to you. You know better. That's nasty. I believe the last time I had Subway in a serious, like where I wasn't being ironic. Like I'm like I had Subway in a real. I haven't had Subway since 2000 and like no, I'm serious. I haven't had Subway since like 2010.
But also, Zach, like you're a man of means, but Jussie Smollett, right? Like Jussie Smollett gotta get Subway.
Jussie Smollett has money. Jussie Smollett has enough money to like. So did y'all know? So I didn't know this. Did y'all know like there's like these services you can get like naked or semi-naked people to cook at your house?
Yes, child.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm late. I didn't know. I didn't know.
There are rent boys. There are escorts.
If I'm Jussie, hey yo, it's lit over here. Make my sandwich in front of me.
Come on, right? That's what I was saying.
Make my sandwich. Make my sandwiches.
Why were you at the Subway?
Make my sandwiches. Do Subway in my house. Do it. Set it up. I'm not going to Subway. And then, you know what I'm saying? You see him, we talking to the police, he got the noose around his neck. I'm kind of like, come on, just. And I mean, I know that we all don't like Dave Chappelle, and I'm not here for Dave Chappelle either. But that little thing he did was not wrong, because I do, let me censure myself as a straight black man, because that's what I do well. So I'll say I definitely felt attacked by some of the commentary, like, oh, straight black men being silent on Jussie Smollett. And I wasn't silent. I was like, yo, this is jacked up about Jussie Smollett, da, 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 da. But in the back of my mind, I ain't gonna lie, I felt pressure to say that, because in the back of my mind, I was like, hey, black people don't eat at Subway. Ever since Jared got caught up, it was a couple things.
Yes.
Jared got caught up.
Yes.
We found out that bread was made of rubber.
The bread yoga mat bread.
And that meat and that tuna meat wasn't tuna meating.
Mm-hmm. And it wasn't
the tunas were not meeting.
Yeah,
and it wasn't a foot long. It was an odd cocktail of pedophilia, lies, and toxicity. Extra toxicity. Pedophilia is also toxic. Don't get me wrong. Excuse me. To be clear,
so unpalatable.
Absolutely. Yeah. Yes, a confluence of unpalatable events, metaphorically and literally. And so black people haven't eaten Subway. So anyway, you know, I'm trying to keep it light, but yeah, I mean, it was tough. You're absolutely right. I agree with you, Dr. Coleman, Dr. Nikki. I agree that, like, you know, he should be held accountable. At the same time, it's tough when you see this other person who did kill two people.
Like literally killed two
people. Literally killed two people.
He killed two people.
On camera.
Severely injured two more.
And then severely injured two more with a gun that he shouldn't have had.
People who was minding their good protesting business. Like, literally, you didn't have to leave your house.
So it's
all.
So in that context of stuff, it's also wild because, you know, they people really want to see the Jussie Smollett trial live. I'm like, you really want to see it? I'm trying to see that Ghislaine Maxwell. I'm trying to see.
Baby,
that's the
receipts on that.
That's the real tea.
But
we can talk about that right now.
Dr. Jide, anything you want to add before we transition over into the rest of the topic of the show?
I haven't connected Kyle Rittenhouse and Jussie, as Dave Chappelle said, French actor Juicy Smollett at all. You know, I like, they are two totally separate, you know, stories. Like for me personally, you know what I'm saying? Like, Kyle Rittenhouse is a story about America, you know, and white supremacy and the ways that white America will protect white supremacy at all steps of you know, the legal system, you know. Mm-hmm. Juicy Smollett is a story about attention. Mm-hmm. That's all I got. It's a story about attention and ego, you know.
But Jide, he used the backdrop of white supremacy in America to do that. Like, that's why, for me, why they are somewhat connected. It's not like he just said, "Ooh, I got robbed" or "I got mugged." Like, he made up this whole thing about they yelled MAGA country and they put a noose around. Like, he made it a racial.
Bullshit. I'm teasing right now because I'm not gonna lie, like, it's so funny, like, it's so over the top, like the noose. You still had the noose on your neck when the police came, dog.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna call it crazy because of the context of, like, this show, and that would be like wildly insensitive. Plus, I have my own therapy I'm going through, right? But he's wilding.
And still 3 years later, I don't know what diagnosis that is. It's some sort of cluster B, but I have I'm like, I don't know what this is. Like,
so I find this whole part of the conversation very interesting because I didn't watch the whole Kyle Rittenhouse trial, but I did see when they interviewed him or when they called him to the stand to testify, and he was like huffing and puffing and crying and doing all this stuff. And the thing that kept coming to me was, he doth protest too much, right? When you're overdoing shit. So if you're going to lie, you actually need to talk less. The more you talk, the worse the worse you are, like as a liar, right? And so I feel the same way about Jussie Smollett or what Juicy or whatever his name is, which is just, if you're gonna lie, just shut your mouth at some point, right? And just leave shit alone. But they're both bad liars, and it just,
I know we got to transition, but Brian, that just made me think of my grandmother. Eva, she was the head of the usher board, and in Black Southern church, people shout and catch the spirit and stuff. And as the head usher, she's supposed to attend. But baby, the people that used to be over the top, she would let them fall all the way out. And one time I was like, Granny, why you just let them fall out? Like she said, ain't that much shouting in the world. They full of shit. And I don't have time to be bothered with that. That's such a valuable life lesson. Like if you doing that much, you're doing the most, then you're really not doing anything. So
preach. Yep. I like that.
We're going to let Granny end it for us.
Yeah. We should have a t-shirt. If you're doing the most, then no, you're not doing it right. Yep. All right. So we are super glad to offer this topic for the last part of the show for our, what'd you call it? Mid-season finale? Is that what you call it?
Yes, that's our mid-season finale.
Yeah. So one of the great things about therapy, and one of the things that we always try to do, is recenter ourselves. A lot of times you can do that through your breath. So everybody take a deep breath. And as we think about 2021, it was a year that kind of got away from us. It started off hectic and it's ending kind of hectic. And so I want to just give some space to some of the big things that happened, because our past informs our future. And so as of this recording, the estimates about the deaths from coronavirus just here in the States is, I think, over 800,000 people have died.
One in 100 seniors have died from coronavirus. 1 in 100.
Mm-hmm.
My God.
And just sitting with that, these are our elders. This is our knowledge base, y'all. So yes, the internet has a lot of knowledge, but there's nothing that compares to the wisdom of our elders. There just isn't. Over this past year, from January 6th to now, they took our government and basically killed it. Mm-hmm. Right. So, and I'm saying they, which we can talk about in a second, because I want to hear from y'all how y'all feel about all this stuff. We were promised a whole lot. So last year, there were lots of corporations who put the black square on their social media handles, and they were talking about buy black, and we're going to have more VC funding, and we're going to do more for entrepreneurs. And that studies are suggesting that those promises have gone largely unfulfilled. Jide's favorite topic, student loans, and the student loan forgiveness still hasn't happened. And then, like I said, there's no accountability for January 6th. And so we are going into the end of 2021 with all of this stuff. And so one of the topics that we want to bring up, because the break room is all about mental health, especially for Black folks at work. And we like to talk about different psychological theories, and so that y'all can be as informed as possible. So the theory of grief, which is normally, Dr. Nikki, do you want to take what is grief? If I know that's putting you on the spot.
Oh, I know. I was like, you probably don't want my definition, because it's not textbook.
Yeah, and I would say, don't do textbook.
Okay. It's interesting because I don't do grief work as a specialty, but you can't be a Black person in this country in therapy and not talk about grief. There's so much trauma and loss that we have to contend with on a regular basis. So I bring the work comes up in the work that I do with my clients. And what I always talk to them about is, for me, grief is the ultimate bittersweet, that there's either been something that you had that you lost, or something that you were striving towards that was not yet promised, and you feel the sadness of that. And so the experience is complicated, and that we call grief this one thing, but it really is a combination of many things, typically including sadness, mourning, anxiety, anger, regret, longing. But we sort of ball it all up into this human experience around grief. That's how I define it.
And Dr. Jide, I'll let you talk about your definition of grief, and then I'll throw out my kind of working definition of grief.
there's this it's a quote definition. I didn't come up with it, but it says that grief is love with nowhere to go. So it's just oftentimes when you're feeling grief, it's about something that you really cared about, and oftentimes we're talking about grief in the context of losing a loved one, somebody you really cared about. So grief is really just an expression of love, and affection and desire for closeness to these things that are no longer with us. That's how I think about it.
Gotcha. Yeah. And in my work with my patients, one of the things, so I'm big on defining trauma. And my definition of trauma is actually very broad, and it's not in the book, Dr. Nikki. That's why I was like, screw this shit. Like, I don't like the textbook definition of trauma. So I do it the way that I do it, which is trauma is anything that happens to you that's beyond your control, that fundamentally changes your understanding of the world, of the universe. And so when I'm giving lectures and I'm talking, I talk about how divorce is incredibly traumatic. Like, we underestimate what happens in divorce. And then to me, grief is the process of missing out on that expectation. So especially in America, we are creatures of expectation, right? We get, as soon as we're born, we hear you work hard and you get, you get to, you get married and you have your 3.2 kids and you live in your house, and that we hear all of that shit. And then we don't get it. And so for Black folks, it feels like it's the realization that we won't have that. It's the realization that that dream won't come to fruition. It to me is grief, is grieving. And then the trauma itself is when somebody, calls you, nigga this, or they fire you for no reason, or they discriminate against you. Those are traumatic events. And so to me, trauma and that grief go hand in hand. And so, and we've had a very, very traumatic fucking year. Like, it has been incredibly traumatic. And so how do we, so to kind of pivot us, because we talked about trauma, we talk about grief. What is mourning? So how do y'all define mourning? Well, Dr. Nikki, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I'm sorry. That's a good question. So one thing I want to put in is, like, we've been talking about this. So we have a calendar year, right? So January 1, 2021 into December 31st, right? But we've really been in this really liminal space since February, March. For me, I always say February because I remember very surreally sitting at dinner with friends in February, late February, and saying, y'all hearing all this stuff about this virus? And like, I think it's like, what if it comes here? What are we going to do? What would that look like? Like, will the United States be locked down? Like, it's so surreal to me. And we have been in an ongoing state of traumas, plural, because it hasn't just been coronavirus. It has been the Fed uprising. It has been we've watched then the trials attached to those momentous experiences around the Black Lives Matter movement. And to your point, right? We've also seen promises unfulfilled around the sort of salve that people tried to put on, our sort of systemic salve that we tried to put on racism in this country. And so it's a compounded experience of grief. So usually I would define mourning as a distinct period of time after the loss of something in which you try to reconcile your life, your new version of yourself with the event, right? With the loss, right? The period of mourning is a specific time to acknowledge that something that you had is gone, or something that you wanted is no longer accessible to you. And therefore, now we have to realign our understanding of ourselves and the world with that new reality. I don't know that we're in mourning because I don't really, we're still in it as far as I'm concerned.
Dr. Jide, what would you add to that? Because, wow.
That was so profound. I have two things to add, actually. One thing that we forgot to add to the over 800,000 dead from the virus, the term woke that they stole and bastardized, the fact that they said they would buy black and didn't buy black,
you ain't buying
cancellation of student loans.
You ain't even buy a t-shirt. Y'all motherfuckers ain't do shit.
The end of democracy. The no accountability on January 6th. I forgot, and we should have mentioned this. The death of abortion rights is happening also this year. Like that is, I'm sorry that we forgot to mention that. That's something that, granted, like the final court case hasn't been set this year, but like it's over. It's over.
White women need to get their red robes and white hats.
Listen. So I forgot to mention that. So that's just another thing that we have lost this year, and that's going to affect everybody, men, women, everybody. So, that's important. Sure. I think for me, mourning is a period that you have to have after a loss. I feel like you have to mourn to be able to move on into the next stage of your life. But like Dr. Nikki said, we're still in this. You can't mourn you can't mourn somebody who's not dead yet, right? You can't mourn something that's not done. We're still in this pandemic with no end in sight. I think that's the other part. Like there's no light at the end of the tunnel, right? This is just it. So it's a period which we're not in yet, but it's a time for you to reflect on yourself, reflect on what this thing meant to you, and be able to develop the skills to cope and move forward, right? So if we're thinking about the death of a loved one, right? There's the death, then there's a funeral, and nobody expects you to go into work, right? People expect you to
who is nobody? White people be
sorry.
looking for you. And, white people be like, you still crying?
You're right. I take that back. If you have a reasonable human being with a heart at your job, they don't expect you to go into work, right? Because there's everybody knows that it's such a loss, and you have to take the time to cry, because sometimes you're just going to cry randomly, after you lose somebody, and find out what works for you moving forward. Right. All of us at our big old ages, right, we've all lost people, and I'm sure it's been hard on each of us in our own ways, but we've all had to take that time to figure out how we're going to move forward, because if you don't, you're going to be mourning while you're doing other stuff, so you need to take the time to mourn. Mourning is an event in and of itself, right? Because if you don't do it, you're going to be mourning while you're at work in the bathroom, you're going to be crying. Right.
But I do think that is part of the trauma of why the trauma of where we are. It's not the total experience, but I think part of the trauma of where we are is that, one, we do live in a white supremacist culture in which humanity is devoid, right? That experience of being able to actually have sanctioned time out to tend to yourself, and to pull yourself back together, to realign yourself. It's not accounted for. You don't do that in a capitalistic white supremacist structure. And we also don't have collective mourning rituals. And so I honestly believe that there is a heaviness on all of us, because 800 plus souls wiped out in a 20-month period is a heavy spiritual hit, and we're not acknowledging it. We're not acknowledging it. When my daughter got vaccinated, her first shot, literally I started bawling in Walgreens, and I was like, what is happening to me? And I reached out to some other mom friends, and they were like, you didn't realize how much you were carrying. And that's it. Like, as soon as they said it, I was like, oh my God, I literally have been carrying the weight of my child's life around with me, but I have gotten so accustomed to the weight of it that I didn't realize it, right? And now that I don't have to carry it anymore, the immediate lightness of that load hit me. We're going to have a great reckoning. White people, the white supremacy has to have a great reckoning, and it has to happen on the soil, because white people, since they landed here, have been fucking shit up for souls for centuries. You don't get to live through that generation after generation after generation without cost. Unfortunately, because of capitalism, our lives are so inextricably caught up with theirs. We're going to take some of the hit too. But we're going to have to pay for this at some point in time especially if we don't take time out to acknowledge the loss, acknowledge how we are fundamentally different people after all that we've gone through, and then try to do some things different afterwards.
So you're bringing up something I'm trying to remember. So first off, y'all, being a psychiatrist, I didn't go to grad school. And in grad school, you get really immersed in theory and pedagogy and all sorts of awesome shit. And so when Dr. Nikki and Dr. Jide were talking, I was like, there's a term, and I can't remember what it is, but it's the term that came up was kind of social compact. So we used to have an understanding that when you get sick, you stay home, right? And we do not expect people who are ill to go to work. Theoretically, that was 20 years ago. Now we are actively hurting Black people. We are actively damaging them, and yet we still expect them to function. And there's just there's an evilness to that, to me. That is like a violation of that social compact. I'm sure there's a better word for it, but I can't think of what it is. And so that was the first thing when you were talking, Dr. Nikki, that I was thinking about. And then Dr. Nikki and Dr. DJ, y'all, this is why I love this fucking show so much, is y'all, you kind of concretized, you codified, you gave structure to this idea of mourning, because you both agree. And I'm like, oh my God, you're right. Mourning is a time period. It is a period of time. And then Dr. Nikki, you said it basically is active. It's an active period of time where you're reconciling and realigning. And Dr. Jide, shit, you are so right. The human brain is bad at multitasking. We've proven this time and time again. And more to go through mourning as an active process, you need to have time to fucking mourn. But we never get time to fucking mourn.
Nope.
And I just
keep it moving.
I literally kind of feel overwhelmed from all of this. So I'm going to stop talking for just a little bit.
Yeah, because it is overwhelming. I think that is, for me, like my decision to leave academia and corporate space to work for myself was one active way of me living more in alignment with my values. And like the further I'm away from it, the more of the toxicity, just even if you work in a good ass job, and I don't mean like the money that you make and the benefits, like where you have a manager that's a human being and you have a work schedule that's amenable to your life, even in those structures, the broader social structure doesn't give a damn about you as a human being, right? And so we carry around a lot of stuff that we don't acknowledge. And this has been a lot happening in a contracted amount of time. That's the other thing too, right? Like 20 months is not for all the things that have happened. Somebody said something. I know. I was listening to all the news coverage about the tornadoes that happened over the weekend, right? We haven't even added the weather events on top of that, right? We've had several major hurricanes, floodings, the whole building that collapsed in Florida. I forgot that had even happened, right? It's
the Amazon warehouse that just collapsed.
Yep. Amazon warehouse.
And while Jeff Bezos was going into space with Michael Strahan on his phallic symbol. Yeah.
That little metal dick they got.
Listen.
It's a lot for the brain to process. And I think that is why. So I think, let me add this layer. Our going about business as normal, I think actually is a very maladaptive coping mechanism as well.
I agree.
Because I think if we did stop and really sat with all that we are trying to navigate and make sense of, especially for those of us that are parents, it would be some shit that would just make you lay out. I would just be right here on this carpet. Like, what, how?
Dr. Nikki, I hate to say this, and I'm not going to cry, but my fear is that
it's a brave spirit.
Well, my fear is that if I sit down and let myself feel it, I actually won't get back up. That is my fear. And so I just don't sit down.
You will get back up though. Like all that time you're laying down to yourself, like we know you will get back up. That's the thing. It's not a question of if you will get back up. You will get back up. But you're admitting that you need to rest.
That's exactly what it is. It's so very true. And like I was being sort of hard on myself. So I've talked on this podcast many times, right? I quit my job in July. I went full time as my own business owner, but I still have all this internalized capitalism, right? And perfectionism. And so I've been on myself like, you're not sticking to a schedule and you need to be working on marketing for this and you need a plan for this and you need to end like all of this stuff. But my body, the more that I listen to my body, the more my body is like, baby, if you don't lay down. And the other thing I want to say too, Brian, is like, we got a long way to go, right? Like if we are really about the business of liberation, this is why radical rest is radical, because when you recognize that your life is about liberation, you realize there is no day off. So what you have to do is learn to work smarter. And you have to take the time to replenish yourself. And the other thing that I want to say is if we collectively stopped, caught up with ourselves, did the mourning, acknowledged all the trauma, did all of that, we would not have any choice but to create something better. Preach. We wouldn't continue to create the same toxic shit. Snaps. If we got it out of our system. That's part of the reason why they don't want us to ever stop and think about the shit.
Yeah, that's true.
That's part of why we see the Great Resignation happening. Because people was at home like, wait a minute, I can make this sourdough and still get your little fancy ass work done.
I'm a part of the Great Resignation. I just want to
yes, me too.
Yeah, we are proud of you. Well, and so as part what comes out of everything, the Great Resignation, all the stuff that's happened. So John Lewis talked about good trouble, which is standing up for what you believe in, especially as Black folks. Like when you know there is a wrong that is happening and you need to stand up and speak your piece and be bold and do it anyway, and show integrity in words and actions. And so he talked a lot about good trouble. And surprisingly, for whatever reason, in my opinion, that didn't seem to really resonate with folks. And so, or it doesn't resonate as much as I was hoping that it would. And so then it made me start to think, okay, well, good trouble. What about good mourning? Because we really do, like you said, Dr. Nikki, we need to mourn. I don't know how that happens, but how do what is good mourning? What could we do as we transition into this new year? What does good mourning look like?
Mm-hmm.
Can I go?
Did you see that? Yeah.
I think, and this goes for, I think, any type of mourning. All right. Lean into your loved ones. Okay. Mm-hmm. Lean into your family and your friends and be vulnerable with them. Okay. And express how you feel and allow them to be there for you and console you and love you. And I know it's that sounds just so easy, right? Just be your friends. Too many people don't do it. Vulnerability is hard. Vulnerability is hard. Shame is a strong feeling of vulnerability and shame. They're like, they butt heads, but lean into your loved ones. That's the best mourning. Nothing will get you, I think, out of it quicker or back to your feet quicker than a loved one with you. So that's what I always start with.
I love it. So I always talk about, for me, I feel like there's always a shift in energy in this time of the year. Like there really is a sort of putting to bed of things and in preparation for the new. And I encourage people to really lean into that energy, like get slower, get more reflective, get quieter, in a more climate stable world. They would be colder at this time of the year and you would want to be in, right? And like be under blankets. And there's a different sort of energy that comes with this time of the year. So what I tell people to do is really sort of just take stock. And I started a practice a few years ago where I started writing down at the end of the year all the things that I had accomplished. Yes, some of it can be like the career or professional sort of material things, but just the things that I wanted to hold myself accountable for and that I have done, right? And I go granular all the way to the macro. And so I encourage you to maybe think about some end of the year journaling, some end of the year self-reflection, to take time out to put it all in perspective before you start the process of moving forward. And I think they should be separate. And then I'm not a fan of resolutions like that. That don't work. But I do think setting I think spending time at the start of the new year, setting intentions for what you want your life to look like. So I always say separate it, because when you can be reflective about what you have done, then you get a much better sense of where you are headed, right? And there may be some things, the morning part, some things you need to leave behind. Okay, that was working real good for me in 2021, but what I'm not taking into 2022 is this. But you can't do that sort of intentionally, realistically, if you don't sort of take the time out to do it.
Yeah.
With like time out and with intentionality.
Yeah. And so, Reverend, please get ready, because I'm going to point to you in just a second. For me, good morning means, and I love the show. Y'all just told me what my good morning is, which is reconcile and realign. So I have splintered myself into no less than like 8 pieces between like 3 or 4 different companies and 2 or 3 different boards. And I've done all this stuff this year. And I feel more fractured now than I've ever been in my whole entire life. And and so my good morning is recognizing, number one, I can't do everything, and I can't be everywhere and be all things to all people. Again, how y'all manage children and all this shit, I have no idea. Like, Lord have mercy. And then realign. So yes, I'm with you, Dr. Nikki. Take separate time on a separate day and sit down and go, okay, what brings me energy and enthusiasm in 2022? So that then I am splitting myself less. And so now we're going to go over to the Reverend.
Reverend Doctor.
Yeah, I think you're muted, sir.
I am.
Okay.
The floor is yours. So what is good morning to you? And then I would love for you to share some words about living corporate and where it's going, the break room, What are you thinking?
No, thank you. So, I think good morning for me is really what I have learned is, for me, it's about like being honest and facing the reality of losing relationships I thought I had. So like, sometimes you meet folks or you come into situations and they're marketed or billed to you as one thing. But as you kind of lean into those situations, you realize it's not what it is. It's not what you were told it would be. And so like, that's a loss, right? Like that's something my therapist is helping me process this year is like, you meet, you think it's going to be a way. You think it's going to be a way. And what it ends up being isn't necessarily bad. It's just not what it was marketed to you to be. And so process, leaning into that and recognizing, no, this is not what you expected. And dealing with the anger that comes with that, maybe even the shame or like feeling maybe if you felt tricked or manipulated in some way. And like, what does it look like to just go through the grieving process, like with that? And like, but the first step with all of that is like honesty. And then there's like some unpacking for me in terms of just good morning as like, okay, why do I find this so mournful anyway? Like, is there pride, my own ego? Is there my own insecurity or like unrequited love in other spaces that I have yet to like personally address? Is it like, so it's a lot of like unpacking and kind of like picking away like at a scar or picking away at a scab that like was really infected. So you got to peel that stuff away anyway so that it can actually heal correctly. And so for me, like that's what good morning has been for me, is really examining myself and trying to figure out like, where do I sit in all of this? And like, where do I need to shift and change and adjust? And so, yeah, that's my answer to that.
Zach is all right.
And I think to the question around just like living, I might cry, but I remember when I reached out to, frankly, complete strangers.
To this day, I still don't know how you found me, Zach. Like to this day, I'm like, who told you my name? Because I had like 3 Instagram followers. I was like,
help me find you. And so, but so it was, it's interesting. I remember when I reached out to y'all, each of y'all individually, and I was just in a very dark place, like in my own just mental wellness overall. It's a very lonely place. And one of my trauma response is to fight. And so fighting looks different as I've continued to age. Fighting used to look like we can just walk around the corner and we can do what we need to do. And then we're going to come back and we're going to move on. Right. That's how I used to fight. And then as I got a little older, I would fight with very long, multi-syllable written sentences. And like I would write, and like just fuss and argue and preach at you. And now I've gotten a little older and I still do that from time to time. But now my fight response is to like build things. And there's some toxicity in that, but there's also some benefit in that. And so it was really in like frankly, when I was at my most suicidal, that I just realized, like similar to Living Corporate, it was created as a platform overall to center and amplify Black and brown folks' work. And it was created out of trauma. It was created out of frustration. I desperately reached out to each of you to create a space that would help. And so I'm just thankful. My mind is blown that, me just reaching out, like just the grace of God in my life, because I had no idea that that I would meet so many people who would genuinely like care and like really be engaged and be involved and create such thoughtful content. I'm just sitting here just listening to y'all go. And I'm just like, man, like my mind is blown just like at how thoughtful this space is. And people will reached out to me and will be like, yo, this is an incredible platform. And like, so I'm just thankful, right? Like I'm in a place of genuine things and just like, I'm in awe of like, frankly, I'm in awe of like just God allowing this to happen. I'm in awe of each of you, like y'all's consistency, y'all's availability in this space. And I'm still in awe of like just of all of what this can be, right? So as we think about this mid-season finale, I'm just like, my mind is just racing like, okay, like what else? What's the next thing? And how do we build this? And how do we build that? And like, how do I continue to like support each of these people who are like giving so much of their wisdom and their time and their talent to this space? But I'm just, I come to this just very reflective and just like, I'm just so thankful that like, y'all were a godsend to me personally. And it's just really cool to see how in my own selfishness, there was still something that was able to, in my selfishness, there's still a blessing that came to help other people. And so I'm just really thankful, and I'm super humbled by it. I'm affirmed by it because it was my idea, but I'm humbled by it because it's like, I didn't know. I just thought it was a dope idea. And the fact that it's now this is just super fire. So I'm just thankful.
I love it. And we, oh my gosh.
Being our leader. We're grateful to you.
Very thankful. One of the fun parts to all of our podcasters. So as always, make sure that if you have any questions, you can always reach us at thebreakroom@living-corporate.com. So one of the funny parts about creating content is, y'all, there's a whole bunch of production that goes into this shit. And the marketing, the way that the sound goes, the editing and everything. And so we at the Break Room are incredibly thankful to all of the folks that live in corporate. And we're thankful to our listeners. And so we're super glad that y'all took the time to listen. And
I just want to say, Brian has done a lot of the production as well. So shout outs to Brian too, Dr. Brian. Like you can't do it for yourself, but I'll do it for you. Word. And Dr. Nikki for being the voice of reason, the voice of the heart.
Preach.
And I'm just here. I'm just here, so I'm just happy to be here.
Y'all's coordination though, like y'all's coordination together. It's just like I said. There's a bunch of different shows and stuff going on, right, at Living Corporate Network, and I've said it over and over. It's like, this is the most like organized and like self-maintaining show. Aww. Right. It's so dope. And like, I say that with love to everybody else. Justin, I love you. Yeah. Everybody.
Right. Because people don't be in their feelings.
But that this it's just, and it's also, I'll say, it's also a reminder that like Gen X Black people be holding it down. Like y'all hold it down for real. Like I'm thankful to you. And I think Dr. Jide, I think we're both millennials, but
yeah, we're millennials.
Yeah. But I'm saying though, but like it wouldn't be like this without Nikki, without the Gen X spice. Yeah, right. Y'all hold it down. Right. So thank you both, for real.
Totally our pleasure. Well, so going into our last part, so normally we would do the last nerve, but we want to leave this mid-season finale on a high note. And so we're going to run the horn and talk about kind of our well wishes for this mid-season, as well as going into the new year of 2023. And so we drew straws.
2022. Slow down, sir.
Oh, Lord.
2023.
Jesus. You know
look at here now.
It's already 2025, everybody. Yeah, just open your eyes. We're already there.
Yeah, every day runs together. We live it twice. So, Dr. Jide, we'll let you go first, and then I'll go after you, and then Zach can give us some words, and then Dr. Nikki will close us out.
Well wishes. Thank you all if you're listening to this. Thank you for taking the time to listen to us. I'm thankful for you. I'm grateful for you. I appreciate you. I just want to say that first. My well wishes to you is to have a safe next few weeks as we go into our next year. Have a great next year. Don't run from your greatness. Lean into your greatness. You know what I'm saying? I've seen a lot of people do it. Imposter syndrome is real, but to lean into it because you are great. You are Black. You are incredible. I was going to say you come from Kangs, but that was going to take it too far. We was Kangs. No, but
the whole step back.
I stopped though. I held it back. But I just wish you love, happiness, and joy, and strong relationships because that's what gets us through. I'm a strong believer in that. So thank you.
Amen. For me, well wishes. So sometimes we stumble upon a tool that is very helpful. And I want my well wishes for everybody is that you get your ass on Twitter, even though it is a cesspool of awfulness. And it is a shit show half the time, but it connects Black people in a way that has never been done in the history of mankind. Now, I'm not saying to spend any money on Twitter. I'm not saying to do anything other than just get organized. It is an incredibly powerful tool, better than Facebook, at getting us together. Especially those Black folks who want more, right? So if you're listening to this podcast, then I can say you are a Black person that wants more. You get your ass on Twitter, connect. We can create lists. And more importantly, we can keep receipts. So I spent $2.99 to get Twitter Blue. And it allows you to organize your bookmarks. And when I say I have bookmarked every motherfucking video from the January 6th thing, every word from the former president, because don't you know, I will be bringing that shit up as we move on along, and we're going to hear people go, oh, well, we really want, how can I help? And I'm going to have to ask people, why did you stay silent when this happened? Right. Mm-hmm. Our memories are really short. And there's a lot of people who are actually hoping that we forget. And so my well wish for y'all and us and everybody is that we do not forget. Bookmark your shit, bookmark the receipts. Let's get organized. That's my well wish for us. And like I said, $2.99 to change the future of the Black experience. I think it's well worth it. So,
you over here really trying to push this Twitter blues. I'm over here, but you got that's a nice little compelling argument because I was looking at it like, but I like it. But okay, all right. We'll talk to you offline about that. Might mess with it. I think my well wish is just like just to not forget your power. Like it's easy to forget, like, because we all are like in these like really oppressive systems like every day, like literally while we're sleeping, like stuff is just popping off. It's just out of control, like all the time. So it's easy for us to get caught up in like our own individual lanes and be like, yo, like it sucks for me. Like I'm really going through it. And you don't always appreciate how many people are looking to you or inspired by you or like see you as way more powerful than you see yourself. Mm-hmm. And so like my well wish to you is that you don't shortchange your power, that you don't shortchange who it is, not only who you are, but also that there are like countless people that will never tell you transparently because they don't want to or they can't fully articulate it, but who really truly believe that you are like super fire. So like don't get so caught up in your own that you lose sight of that, and just walk into your power, walk into your voice, lift your head, lift your hand, and just try, like, do something outside of yourself, right? Like and be encouraged at the fact that there's someone else who's looking at you, that you might be the thing that's keeping them going. Right. And so, like, just don't lose hope of that. Don't lose sight of that. And decenter yourself if you can from your own narratives, if you can. I'm not trying to be insensitive talking to a room full of mental health experts. So if that comes across like super insensitive, then like, please forgive me. Like, I'm not trying to be, I'm just saying it's easy for us to like, depression for me, it looks like that for me. Like I just super hyper center myself. And so anyway, that's my well wish. And then I just you're dope, man. Like, you're black. Yo, it's lit over here. Like we're black. Like, it's fire. Like, okay. Like, I'll be clear. I'm crying tears of joy. Like, I'm genuinely thrilled. Right. Like, all the trauma be damned. I'm genuinely thankful to be here. So,
amen.
Yeah, that's me.
Awesome.
I love it. Let me start with gratitude first and foremost for this experience, for bringing me together. In centering myself as a Black woman, I have not had many compassionate, kind, loving, caring, like genuine caring relationships with a lot of Black men, and particularly in professional spaces. I have been hurt more by Black men in professional spaces than I have been protected or cared for or even connected to. So if there is nothing else that comes out of the break room, my experience in getting to know each of you and having real relationships with each of you really is absolutely affirming, and a place of respite for me as well. So thank you for that. And I don't say that superficially at all. So I want to for sure say that. I just kind of like running my mouth. I like talking shit. And this platform gives me a space to do that about things that are really important to me. Much like we've all articulated in different ways and times throughout here, like, we love being Black and we love Black people. And so if I get to be in a space where I talk about any contribution to how we can do more of that, be more of ourselves, live more fully in ourselves and our excellence, and do it with care and compassion and love, I'm with it. So I'm grateful to be able to show up and do that week in and week out. And then my well wishes are for everyone. I've been sitting a lot in this space lately, so it's really sort of the center of how I'm viewing most things. But my well wishes are for you to remember at all times who and whose you are. The reality is, even if we didn't come from kings and queens, we come from a long line of thrivers, not just fucking survivors, but thrivers. There's none of us would be here had there not been some legacy of thriving and yearning and relentless hope through our ancestry and our lineage. And I'm a firm believer that none of that is wasted on any of us. So my, what I've been saying a lot to myself lately, really as a prayer, but as affirmation, is just to remind myself who I am and whose I am. And that is not just in terms of my my ancestral lineage, but also where I'm going and what's the legacy that I want to leave behind for me. So I want to encourage everybody to just spend some time at the end of this year and reflect on that for themselves. Write the shit down, because even when you have moments, and we all will have them, where everything around us is making us forget that, pull it out,
preach,
and read it and remind yourself until you can remember again.
Amen. Yay! So we are so thankful that y'all chose to join us in season 2 of The Break Room. We hope y'all will come back for season 3 after our mid-season finale, which is what this is, in the spring of 2022.
Season
right?
2B. Season 2B.
There you go.
This
Season 2B.
mid-season is 2B.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, season 2B. In the meantime,
2.0.
Exactly.
I love that.
In the meantime, you can find our asses on Twitter, which is why I said that earlier. So get your ass on Twitter, even if you don't tweet nothing. Make sure to follow us because we have tips and tricks and all sorts of stuff that we like to post, as well
And
as
Zach be asking people dissertation level questions on Twitter about Black mental health. Okay, I was like, let me take a stab at it
that hit me
first.
so random. I was like, yo, is this a question? I might need to.
And I also
Write this
have
on
great
Twitter.
opinions on Twitter.
Yes.
So,
About-
follow my opinions.
Y'all, so
Everything.
Dr. Jide's followers or something.
I didn't like that groaning, everybody. That groaning was offensive to me. Like, there was like a
I
collective,
mean, your mental health, your mental wellness and health opinions are fire.
Yeah.
It's
Everything
crazy because
else
your
is,
opinions were so bad. That's what attracted me. Your opinions were that bad about everything else. I was like, oh, this is crazy.
Yep. He don't like pickles. He don't like sweet potato pie.
You don't like cheese,
Yes.
except on nachos. What?
There are
What?
listeners right now, and I want you to know I'm right. They're not right. I'm the right way here, okay? I'm the right one.
So all the more reason, make sure you follow us because we enjoy hearing from y'all in all of our access points. So, which is another plug for another Living Corporate show. Hey, look, see cross-pollination.
That's
Get
right.
it, get it? And so, so we will sign off and we will see y'all in the spring. Until then, please stay safe. And thanks for everything, guys.
Bye.
Peace.
Bye, y'all.